We got many calls after the video was released asking did they have mental health courts in the state of Virginia like they have in other states in America, because what you don't want is people who are having mental ill crisis to be treated like criminals and locked away in cages when they've committed no crime. They just have a mental health illness. And so that was what we were calling for, that treat mental health issues like medical issues, not like criminal issues. And that could be a basis of Idaho law, to look into the possibilities of having mental health court instead of just sending them to criminal court and convicting them of trumped up charges.
And can I just quickly clarify, just so we can look out for the basis, what states would you say serve as a good model for that?
I know they're doing that in California now, and I believe they're doing it in New York.
On March 3rd, Ivo was in the Parham Hospital. He was with clinicians getting the treatment that he needed. And his mother was there, wasn't permitted to see him, but she was comforted by the fact that he'd been able to sleep for 40 minutes for the first time in some time. Ivo was then whisked away from her, taken to a jail, and the charges are, among other things, a disturbance at a hospital. He was in a mental health ward, receiving the mental health care that he needed. He was taken away in handcuffs and then placed into a cell by himself with a cold concrete floor, and we saw, at least on the 6th, he was naked in there. He was calling out for help, and he wasn't being provided it. That should have never occurred. He should have stayed in a clinical setting, receiving the care that he needed. Indeed, what happened, he was snatched from that, put into the jail, and then his mother was kept from him during that period of time, and then you saw what happened when he was taken to Central State, when they pushed him down aggressively and took away his final breath.
Mr. Krudys, Mr. Crump, is there any update on potential body cam footage from the Henrico police?
Not that we've been able to receive at this point, but they will not turn over that until certain requests are being made by, among other things, an administrator of the state, which typically happens about 60 days after a death has occurred. That's under Virginia law. We do know that, so at Central State and at Henrico, the jail itself, we don't believe that those officers had body camera on. But the officers that responded to the house did have body cameras on. They're Henrico police. And there should be not only body camera of that, but also conversations of that. And you've heard from prior statements from the family that Carolyn had her arm around trying to protect her son. And he left without incident. He was taken away. She thought he was going to be going into an ambulance. It was originally going to be in a police cruiser. Then he was taken to Parham, and the events that you know of occurred.
And recall what she said, my son is having a mental health crisis. He hasn't done anything bad. He's not a bad person. He's having a mental health crisis. Any other questions?
Do we have an official cause of death yet, or any?
Not, as I previously shared, the medical examiner did call Caroline shortly after the death and did tell her that she utilized the word asphyxia in the conversation. That is our understanding of what the cause of death is, but we haven't received any official word in connection with it yet. The Richmond Times-Dispatch talked about delays in connection with that office. When they do certain types of testing, they do it in batch testing. In other words, they take samples from a variety of cases and they run it all for a particular, looking for a particular element or the like. That takes some period of time, but we're confident, we're very confident that the medical examiner is going to come back with the cause of death that you and I have all seen. That basically these officers put their weight on him, and we've consulted with doctors in connection with this matter. They've said that it is a human reaction, an innate human reaction to try to get a breath. Any movement that Ivo had when he was down on the ground with handcuffs and shackles was seeking that final breath.
You know, what's on the video is clear. Almost 12 minutes, he is in a prone position where I can't even imagine how many pounds of weight pressing down on him. And I know our legal team, Natalie Jackson, Claire, Kareem, they've all looked at the time, the length. It's close to 12 minutes. And so it's, if the medical examiner came back with any other conclusion than what is consistent with what we saw in the video, I think there'd be outrage in the community. There'd be outrage in America if they try to justify this unjust death. There's no way to do it. What we see on the video tells us what killed Ivo. Just like George Floyd, it was an overdose of excessive force.
If I may, look at me now. My hands were shackled in the front and my feet were shackled and I was prone. I posed absolutely no risk to those individuals around me. And Ivo posed no risk at all. And that's how he was, face down, with his handcuffs in the front and then his feet shackled. There is no argument that he posed any threat to anyone.